to the Web3 Prof Podcast.
Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Web3 Prof Podcast. I'm here with the mayor of the city of Vancouver, Ken Sim. Ken, thanks for being with me here today.
Thanks for having me here today.
This is going to be a great conversation. So just for context, you put forward a motion in the city of Vancouver to make Vancouver a Bitcoin-friendly city. Tell us a little bit about that motion and why you even did that.
Wow. Okay. So
let's just get into it.
At the risk of getting into a lot of trouble now, look, maybe I'll step back a bit. I went down the rabbit hole, or I got orange pilled about 5 years ago. And so I truly believe in the benefits of Bitcoin. I know I feel like all the other Bitcoin, maximalists, that this is going to change the world. And so, and like a lot of individuals, especially in politics, there are a lot of us that are sort of, hiding in the closet, so to speak, right? Because, we have to worry about public perception, and because it's new and there's so much misinformation out there, as soon as you put your head up, it can get rocked. Yeah. But you know what? We've opened the can of worms, and so we're going to talk about all of this stuff. So your question, why did we file the motion? I truly believe that, like I said, Bitcoin's going to solve all of our challenges. When I look at what we need to do at the city of Vancouver, and you can say this about pretty much any, or the vast majority of cities across the planet, we are in the same space that, residents are, in terms of we're dealing with the debasement of currencies. It feels like people can't afford groceries or housing, and it's becoming more pronounced. And so we play in that space as well. And my concern, one of my big concerns, is we can, improve the city quite a bit, but we will never be able to improve the efficiencies as quickly as the debasement of currencies. And we're going to be looking at our city 10 years from now, 20 years from now, with the choice. Do we cut our level of services, which means, less firefighters, less police officers, less engineers on the street, or do we increase taxes at a crazy rate? And neither of them are workable. Right. And so Bitcoin provides that alternative where we can actually address those challenges, and we can actually not only keep up with the rate of debasement, but actually get ahead of it. Now, I do have to qualify one thing. Everything I say in this podcast, I am not giving investment advice. I am not qualified to give investment advice. So these are just opinions, and we don't know where they're going to go in the future.
Sure. Right. What do you say to people who look at the idea of putting Bitcoin on the city reserve and they say, well, it's really volatile. This is too big of a risk for the city of Vancouver?
Yeah, you know what? They're not necessarily wrong. Okay, and so I think it's great that we have these debates because, from one perspective, well, in both perspectives, I have a fiduciary responsibility to look out for the best interests of the city of Vancouver. Right. And so I'll put my accountant's hat on here. And from a traditional accounting role, it's like, look, we have to match revenues with expenses. And, we're not in the business of, let's say, if I were to take an extreme view, speculating and hoping this works and investing in a volatile asset, And if you were to only were that look at it from that perspective, you would never touch Bitcoin. Okay. I'd like to pose a different question. Knowing that, this is a problem that we're going to face, that we see 10 years, 20 years from now, we're going to be in a very challenging situation. The real question is, how do we get ahead of this? Right. And so I think we have to rethink this problem differently. Now, if you take a long-term view, if you're trading, forget it, like it could be gold, it could be Bitcoin, it could be, equities, it could even be, fixed income instruments. You can actually trade them on a daily basis. If you're trading them, you're a trader. Look, that's not what we're trying to do here. I'm a big believer you can't time the market, and the data shows us you cannot time the market. Okay, and I don't think we're smarter than the market. If you take a longer-term view, Bitcoin's been the number one performing asset on the planet over the last 16 years. When you go to first principles and you realize that it actually, it's not controllable by any one person, company, or corporation, it cannot be manipulated. You can't print more of it beyond the algorithm that's going to stop at 21 million in the year 2140. And it doesn't matter where the Bitcoin price goes, et cetera, et cetera. you know, and I don't want to bore your viewers with a lot of detail. They already know. But all of a sudden, it'd be irresponsible not to look at this to add it as part of our balance sheet. Like when I look at gold, so I was given a stat, and by the way, you can stop me if I'm going on.
No, I love this. This is great.
So, I heard years ago that the house prices in Vancouver have not changed since 1930. Right. And so, Vancouver is a good proxy because out of any city on the planet, with the exception of maybe like Hong Kong and Sydney, our real estate prices have, they're crazy.
Yeah.
So when I heard that stat, I had to prove it to myself because everything we do is based on data. Mm-hmm. And so I went back to 1977, the first time, but the best data I have, and I'm not sure if picking these numbers, I just recently looked at from 1995 to the year 2022 in the city of Vancouver. Mm-hmm. So in 1995, the average house price in terms of dollars was $500,000. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the 2022, it was $2.43 million, or it went up 381%.
Right.
And so if you're from Vancouver, that's like, yeah, that feels like what we've all experienced. When priced in gold, in 1995, it cost 958 ounces of gold. Mm-hmm. And in 2022, it cost 957 ounces.
That's remarkable.
Yeah. Now, look, if I was one of your reviewers, I'd go, yeah, you cherry pick that. But if you actually look at any range, and you got to strip out the outliers, like, the crazy year when it went crazy up, or the crazy year when everything imploded. Mm-hmm. You strip out the outliers, you're in a pretty tight band. When priced in gold, you probably have a variance about 15% either way. Yeah. But in terms of dollars, it's just skyrocketed.
Yes.
It's absolutely nuts.
Yes.
And so as a person that cares about the city, and forget about Bitcoin for a sec, as a person that cares about this city, if we know that's what's going on and we see the rate of debasement, not just in Canada, but around this planet, and you look at it, it's just going to get worse. And we can go into detail on that one. You realize, wait, we got a challenge here. So the first conversation is not even about Bitcoin. It's how do we stop the rate of debasement affecting us? And so then you can go, well, maybe it is gold. Why aren't we looking at gold? And then you go, well, wait a sec. If you believe we're going to approach this challenge differently, and you compare gold to Bitcoin, my opinion is gold is an analog version of Bitcoin. It's like comparing a fax machine to AI. It's crazy.
Yeah. So when we look at the ideas around holding Bitcoin on reserve in Vancouver, do you think that this will spur innovation beyond the city preserving wealth? What will it do to local businesses, for example?
Oh, no, it's already happened now. And I think all your viewers know, or maybe they don't, like Vancouver is a bit of an epicenter when it comes to Bitcoin. Us being on the frontier and the rate of adoption, I think we have the most shops that accept Bitcoin.
That's right.
Right. And the first Bitcoin ATM was in Vancouver. Yep. And there's this whole ecosystem in Vancouver. And what I discovered was there are a lot of people. I knew the people that were into Bitcoin, they're quiet because they get ostracized.
Right. Yes.
But when we put a stake in the ground, a lot of people came out of the woodwork.
Right.
And then the bigger thing is people around the globe have been they've noticed Vancouver and they're celebrating and they want to support. And I think it's great for the ecosystem because, if you sovereign individuals, people can travel, they can work anywhere on the planet, and they choose to go to a place that is friendly to whatever business they're in.
Yeah.
That's one view. And so a lot of, we've opened the world's eyes to Vancouver.
Yeah. And I think when we even look at like El Salvador, like the tourism boom that it experienced just because it became a Bitcoin friendly country has been pretty substantial. And when we look at our province and our city, I mean, tourism's a huge thing for us. So I guess the potentials around tourism growth from Bitcoiners visiting who often have a fairly substantial wealth could be a great benefit to the city.
It could be. And, I think I think of, the Bay Area, it's a tech mecca. Mm-hmm. I think we all know that. Bitcoin, the Bitcoin blockchain, how the world's going to, organize itself. There's nothing guaranteed, but it looks like it's going towards Bitcoin.
Right.
Regardless of what Vancouver does.
Yes.
regardless of what any country does. And we can be at the center of that.
Yeah. So what's the timeline here? The city has approved your motion, and so where do we go from here?
Yeah, thank you for asking that question. So there is a process. As much as I love what's going on here, it's not as if we can make our city team members, who are great by the way, do stuff. So they've been tasked to explore options and come back with a report. And so I think the first step is them coming back with a report.
And in what time frame does that happen? Or what
that's going to be in the first quarter of 2025. So let's say roughly March, by March 31st. I hope I got those dates correct. That could change, but first quarter, to give them the time to actually think about it and be very thoughtful, which is kind of it's kind of a balancing act as well, because the world's moving so fast. And so our institutions that we love, and I'm here today, part of that institution, part of us, we have to be able to, and it's not just on this motion, but for everything, we have to be able to act a lot faster,
right?
Because the whole world's reacting faster. But that's the first quarter. Then as a council, we vote on it. So, hopefully we get something great, and then we vote on it and we approve something that's great as well. But there are challenges, because the provincial government has said they have they don't have an interest in changing the Vancouver Charter, which will then, let's say, I'm painting a hypothetical here.
Yeah.
Let's say the report comes back and says, it's prudent to, as a part of a diversified portfolio, have, 1 to 5%, whatever that number is, of your reserves in Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And they've looked at the risk, reward, volatility, all that stuff, and it makes sense. The province has said that they have no desire to change the Vancouver Charter that allows us to do this. And I do, I don't want to create a battle here, very far from it. They're exercising their fiduciary responsibility, right? And their view, and it's not wrong, they want municipalities, they don't want municipalities across the province gambling. Right, and day trading and getting out of their core competency. And I totally respect that.
Yeah.
And it's not a bad thing. And we know we're running into a challenge 5, 10, 15 years from now. And we have to solve this challenge, or it's going to get worse. And there are ways of doing it so we can address the very valid concerns of the province, who are exercising their fiduciary responsibilities, and tackle the challenges we have. But I can tell you one thing, we need to think differently on this one, or we're in trouble. I believe that's my personal opinion.
Right.
I could be wrong, but you just look at,
And you're not alone on this idea from holding it on reserve. Pennsylvania is doing this. Texas is proposing this. Obviously, the country of El Salvador, various cities around the world. So this isn't a global precedent setting moment, but it certainly is leading something that it isn't commonly happening right now.
Yeah, and like I said, the world's going really fast. I bet you in 3 months we're going to wake up and there's going to be dozens, if not hundreds, of cities and states and nation states that do it. Like Bhutan, I found out just recently they have over $1 billion in Bitcoin.
Right.
It's so, and rumor is 3 of the BRIC countries, they're front running the United States on this as well. And then you have, sovereign wealth funds, you have high net worth individuals, you have BlackRock, and, ARK,
the list goes on,
the list goes on and on. So we're just at the beginning, and Hong Kong just announced a couple of days ago that they're looking at this as well.
Wow.
So we're leading right now.
Right.
And if we take too long, forget about the title of being a leader.
Right.
Which there are tons of benefits to the local economy and the ecosystem here. That's one thing. The other thing is, if we are leading right now, but we wait and this thing happens, most of the benefits of being early will be extracted before we even get into the game.
Right.
And it makes it a lot harder to set up the city for the next 100 years if we wait a year.
Yeah.
And that's why there's a rush.
Yeah. One thing that I brought forward at the council meeting was this idea of using Bitcoin digital boilers, Bitcoin miners, to heat water for pools, or to even heat city facilities, to turn a cost center into revenue center. What do you think of these types of more innovative ideas beyond just holding Bitcoin on reserve?
Well, I think it's absolutely brilliant. And it sort of goes to my earlier comment about how Bitcoin's going to save the world. Right? Like everyone, from a very simplistic point of view, we're just talking about, well, the Bitcoin price is going to go up.
Right.
But it's bad for the environment and organized crimes. You do nefarious things on Bitcoin. It's like, well, no, it's a great protocol, and, it can help us preserve our capital. And I actually think it's going to save the planet when it comes to the environment. Like, think of capturing and repurposing natural gas that's getting flared off, that's damaging our environment. Right. Think of the methane as well. Think of the green renewable energy projects where the economics don't pan out. But if you have a customer, a Bitcoin miner that will pay for all the excess supply, these projects get built. Yeah. And then a magical thing happens. You have green renewable energy that would never have existed, and the locals actually buy it because now that it's built, they're willing to pay more than a Bitcoin miner. Yes. So, but all this stuff as well. So it's gonna save the planet, and then you can be like, the project that you described can save the city. Like, we have a pool called Kit's Pool, and it's like one of the most iconic pools on the planet. It's 137 meters long. It's outdoor. On the ocean. And it's a cost center. And wow, we can actually refurbish it, actually build a new one, and it will be a profit center.
That's revolutionary.
Yeah. And so I'm also a free market individual. Like, I do believe there should be some guardrails to stop, the stupid. But, you let individuals in the community come up with these innovative ideas, and you set them free, and magic can happen. And a lot of these Bitcoin miners and people in the community have come out, and they showed us all these things that we can do. Yeah. Solve the challenges that we want to solve. Yeah. It's absolutely amazing.
Yeah. When you look at the potential of this motion, are you hoping that the city can accept Bitcoin as payments for property taxes and various city services? And if you think that's possible, or that's a hope for you, would you incentivize people to pay with Bitcoin by like giving them discounts or things like that?
Yeah. So once again, I'd really defer to our team members at the city of Vancouver. So, now I'm going to take my mayor's hat off, and I'm going to put, just Ken Sim hat on. Yeah. It would be great. The biggest impact, I think, in the short term would be to have it as part of our reserves. The transactional nature of this, it'll be more signaling to the world that we're open for business and we're a Bitcoin friendly city. And one of the side benefits, it will actually help, individuals that are unbanked in our city, so they can actually pay for things, and we don't have to worry about nefarious transactions, because we can actually, as opposed to cash, we can track everything if we really wanted to. So I think it would be great. The federal government has to change the tax code, right? Because every time there's a transaction, technically it's a capital disposition of capital. Yeah. Right. Like, it's really clunky, but it's a nice first step into easing people into the ecosystem, demystifying it, and it also provides legitimacy. It's one thing, and I'm not knocking at like a cafe or a little shop, right? It's one thing to accept Bitcoin at your local little small business, which is awesome, by the way. Yes. It's another thing when the city of Vancouver, we have over 10,000 team members, and, we reach across the city, and we touch a whole bunch of things. And, we're a AAA rated, organization when it comes to debt. When this organization steps up and says, yes, this is a real thing, it sends a big signal to the community. Yeah, of course it does. And I mean, the idea of the unbanked is interesting, because a lot of the issues that people bring up with Bitcoin, like it's used for nefarious activities or that it's bad for the environment, are what we find out are often actually contrary to the truth around Bitcoin. Like allowing people who are in impoverished situations, who are unbanked, who don't have identification, to transact in the economy is really important. And that's something that you reference here. Yeah. Do you see the city actually going forward with some Bitcoin ideas? And what happens if it's all declined? Where does that leave you? Well, we're not giving up this fight. Like, if you, and I'm just talking to anyone here, but if you truly believe in something, and you get handed a couple of setbacks, you just keep plugging away. That's actually the entrepreneurial journey. Think of how many times, like I think at am I allowed to mention companies? Actually, I won't mention the companies.
Go ahead. You're welcome to.
All right. So, well, no, I want to keep this, clean. So I will not mention Nurse Next Door or Rosemary Rock Salt, two of the companies I'm involved in, because that would be bad. No, it's no, we fall on our face left, right, and center all the time. Right. And you just pick yourself up and you're given no's all the time and you plug away.
Yeah.
And so with this, it's no different. And, when it comes to the nefarious activities, I think the only people that believe that are the dumb criminals, and they're going to get caught. Like it's the complete opposite of reality when you can track every single transaction going back, 16 years on the blockchain, and no one can change it. Criminals get caught there. You know what? Stay with cash. If you were a criminal, I shouldn't have said that. But and if people actually want to change the world, we have to look beyond. Look, I have a fiduciary responsible to make sure that we work in the best interest of the residents of the city of Vancouver.
Yeah.
But if you want to change the world, let's talk about Afghani women who've lost all their rights. And now through Bitcoin, they don't even have to go through their husbands, spouses. It's always a husband in Afghanistan.
Yes.
Who may or may not give them their money. Now they have, financial sovereignty where they can actually have an app trade in Bitcoin amongst their friends. Then, it provides them with independence. How is that not incredible? Or you look at, you go to Argentina, or you go to, Nigeria, or you go to even Turkey, right? Where your currency is devalued anywhere between, whatever, 50, 75 to 100%. This actually this gives them a way of storing their hard, their energy that they sort of expended working at whatever they did for the prior year, and they can bring it into the future.
Yeah.
So it's cool on multiple levels. We just don't see it as much here because it's not, the place hasn't blown up.
Yeah.
But if you actually look at the purchasing power of individuals here, they don't see it because people always compare the Canadian dollar to the US dollar. Mm-hmm. Oh no, it's gone down 5%. No. Your purchasing power probably went down 20%. Yeah. You just don't see it, but you feel it. And so that's what's going on here.
What do your kids think of this? You got a whole hockey team worth of children. What do they think of Bitcoin?
Yeah, well, if they played hockey, that team wouldn't be very good. Just
well, you didn't produce any athletes?
They're soccer players.
Okay, there we go.
Soccer and basketball, which is funny. Basketball, they're all taller than me, but not much taller. So there's not a good career in that. Yeah, we'll call that's the fiat currency of their sporting careers.
Yes.
No, they love it. Like one of my boys, he came up to me about a year before, I sort of, got with the program and said, Dad, I want to buy Bitcoin. And I can't believe I'm going to say this again.
You're going to say this a second time.
I'm going to say it a second time.
Ken already said this on a podcast a couple of weeks ago, and he regretted it, and he's going to say it again.
Yeah, well, but it really hits home, so to speak.
Yes.
I literally said, you touch that shit and I'm going to punch you in the throat. Okay. And obviously I didn't, and I wasn't going to, and he's bigger than me, and he would just laugh. I'd bounce off him and then he'd sit on me and tickle me. But yeah, no, I think everyone, or the vast majority of people that are, Bitcoin maximalists, they went through the same journey I went through. Like, and to give your viewers some context, I'm a chartered accountant, former investment banker. I was in private equity, have a couple of companies, entrepreneur.
You're not a politician.
Not a politician.
Yeah.
And so when I heard this stuff, it's like, and I've seen thousands of business plans, and I've written some of them as well. And so it's like, that stuff is shit.
Yeah.
And then the same thing, bad for the environment, organized crime, all this stuff. And then I got a little curious. And so I dug in. I read about 12 books on, not just on Bitcoin, the Bitcoin standard, the fiat standard, the truth machine, but read When Money Dies, about the Weimar Republic in 1930s Germany. The list goes on and on. Ray Dalio's book, The Changing World Order, it talks about the rise and fall of the Dutch Empire, the British Empire, the US Empire. And then you go, wow, wait a sec, there's something here. I didn't even think about money and what properties gave money its value. And then you sort of go, wow, this is absolutely crazy. And we're repeating history.
Yeah.
And then you look at the technology and you go, holy crap. For the first time ever in human history, we actually have something that can solve these challenges. And that's why I think it's the greatest invention ever, because it can actually stop this repetitive cycle, and it will reshape how everything changes. And I'm looking forward to reading the new book by the author of the Bitcoin Standard,
Saifedean.
Saifedean, yeah. He came out with he's coming out with a book, and I heard some of the highlights, like what would happen if Bitcoin existed, in 1915,
Right.
we wouldn't actually have inflation,
World Wars.
and now obviously it's fictional,
Yeah.
but how, if that is what the world can look like 20, 30 years from now, because we adopt Bitcoin, we adopt the Bitcoin standard, how amazing is that? And so forget about me being mayor. I would love to, and I would sign up for that program all day long.
Right. I hope that Vancouver residents watch this podcast who are not interested in Bitcoin at this point, to speak to those people who maybe are agnostic, maybe are uneducated, or maybe who fight against Bitcoin. What do you say to the Vancouver resident who is faced with a mayor that they voted for, or maybe voted against, but who was elected?
There are some of those, yeah.
You didn't get 100% of the votes, right?
No.
But what do you say to these to citizens on the consideration of Vancouver moving to become a more Bitcoin friendly city?
Well, ignore Bitcoin for a sec. I think just look around and tell me how you feel. Have things gotten more expensive? Are we, as a society, more divided than before? Maybe in Vancouver it's gotten better, but let's say, our nation, our province, our nation states, do you feel the polarization? And then I would say, be curious, right? If you believe that this place can get better, we're in a challenging situation, but things can get better, then be curious, be open, but don't trust me. Don't trust someone who tells you that Bitcoin's the greatest.
Right.
There's this thing saying, don't trust, verify. Go and do the work. If you're totally against it, that's fine. If you don't want to do the work and you're totally against it, that's fine. What I would say to you is, there was a time when people thought that the world was flat. And then when people said the world is round, or it's a sphere, they looked really bizarre for a while.
Right.
Or even Galileo, he looks into space through a telescope and it's like, wait a sec, the Earth isn't the center of the universe. And then he came back, but he was speaking with people who didn't have telescopes. He thought he was nuts. I think it took another, 330 years before the church recognized that,
Yeah.
Earth. So arm yourself with a telescope. Don't fight it. And then, verify for yourself. Because I can tell you one thing. I truly believe that this is inevitable. Doesn't matter what Vancouver does. Really doesn't.
Right.
It's going to happen around the planet. It's already happening.
Right.
And it's an exponential technology as well. And so we're going to wake up 5 years from now and the whole world's going to be changed. Do you want to be on the front end of that change? Or do you want to react after?
Yeah.
But it's going to happen. And it's not just the city of Vancouver. It's going to come into your daily life.
I mean, everywhere if you watch the news, read the newspaper, whatever, the conversations around Bitcoin are all over the place right now.
Yeah.
And partially that's related to the fact that yesterday hit an all-time high of $108,000 in US denominated currency. And so there's a lot of excitement around it. To wrap this up, Ken, what message would you like to leave the listeners with? Where can they learn more about the motion and the movement of the city of Vancouver towards Bitcoin? Where can they learn more even about yourself?
Well, don't go on Twitter. Let me. That's such a terrible place. Sorry, X. No, you know what? It's a great question. So I think people can get educated. I think the gold standard, whatever. I was going to say, the Bible, whatever. The best book I've seen to give you a crash course on Bitcoin is the Bitcoin Standard.
Yep.
There's also a video, a documentary that just came out called God Bless Bitcoin. Mm-hmm. And I think they do an amazing job. It's an hour and 21 minutes long. You can find it on YouTube. Mm-hmm. It will give you Bitcoin 101.
Excellent.
Right. It may not be I actually really enjoyed it, but it may not be in the style of some people, how they consume their content. Mm-hmm. But it doesn't matter. Just like it's awesome. Go through it. It'll give you a great understanding of how it works, but also some of the implications of adopting it as well.
Yeah.
You can hit the City of Vancouver's website. It's probably like vancouver.ca. I should really know that. But if not, just Google it and find, and you can find more about the motion. And just get educated on it. And, I think if you do that, regardless of what happens at the City of Vancouver, I think you're going to be in a way better situation. And I'll leave your viewers with this. My dad never used an ATM because it was new technology and he didn't trust it. And how can you give a machine money?
Right.
My sister-in-law, she's going to literally punch me in the head now. She didn't trust sending money through Interact online because it's like, this is really weird.
Yeah.
And you know what? They both happened, and now we don't know what we would do without it.
Right.
This feels like that with Bitcoin. It's getting adopted everywhere, and I've actually seen having gone to a bunch of conferences and spoken with people that are really deep in this, I see what's coming on layer 2 and how transactions are all going to happen on Bitcoin. And forget about if you believe in Bitcoin or not. As a business owner, when I look at how it operates versus how the banks and Visa operate, I'm rushing over to that in a second because it happens at the speed of light at a fraction of a cost of the cost of the traditional banking system.
Yes.
So this is going to happen regardless if you enjoy it or not, if you believe in it or not.
Yeah.
And so it's coming. Be prepared.
I love it. That's amazing. Ken Sim, Mayor of Vancouver, it's been a pleasure. Thanks so much for taking some time to chat with me here today.
Great. Thanks for having me.
Awesome.